Are any of these Buffalo Trace products actually worth your money? Let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Nathan here with the Everyday Drinker, bringing you guys a brand new video. We all know these three bottles of bourbon on the bar top. Buffalo Trace, the Buffalo Trace bottom line bottle of bourbon that's coming in at about $25 to $35 in most areas. Eagle Rare 10-year, a 10-year bottle of bourbon that comes in at about $30 to $40 in most areas. And finally, the pinnacle of all pinnacle bourbons, the tater juice itself, Blantons, a $65 bottle that can push upwards of $200. Is this bottle of bourbon any bit better than its counterpart, the Buffalo Trace? We're going to find that out today. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys drop that like button. Leave a comment down below on what your favorite Buffalo Trace product out of these three are in the comments below. And lastly, smash that subscribe button because we're on the road to 20,000. Now today we're not going to be blinding these. We're not going to be putting these in any kind of order. I am just strictly going to try and decipher whether or not this Blanton's bottle over here is any bit better than the Buffalo Trace. I have my own thoughts on these three bottles right here. I think that the Eagle Rare is probably your best bet out of the three, but we're going to go into these and we're going to nose and taste and see which one is any bit better. If they have any differences, I'm going to let you know that. But we're going to start here on the left. And the Buffalo Trace product all the way over here is the Buffalo Trace. It's a 90 proof bottle, coming in at that $25 to $30 price range most of the time in most areas. Some places push it all the way up to $40 freaking. Why? I have absolutely no idea. This is a roughly 4 to 6 year aged bourbon, depending on what barrels they put in that batch. And it's Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 1, which is their low rye. Again, we have absolutely no idea what that mash bill is, but the quote unquote percentage is around 8% rye. So that is definitely a low rye. And even if their high rye is roughly around 12, that's still considered a low rye mash bill in my opinion. But nonetheless, Buffalo Trace, their bottom tier bottle of bourbon at 90 proof. I mean, your nose, you're going to get a nice soft vanilla, and that's what I'm getting off of this right here. You're getting a nice light oak characteristic, nothing that is too pungent on any aspect of this bottle. It is quote unquote the quintessential bourbon, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that quote right there. It's caramel, it's butterscotch, it's got a touch of honey. The cherry note that you are always familiarizing yourself with Buffalo Trace is definitely in here. It's definitely not as potent when you find it in that E.H. Taylor, the Stag Juniors, and the George T. Stags, because this is definitely proofed down a little bit. But you still get that nice soft little bit of cherry in that back end of the nose that is very, very pleasant. And you're gonna get a little bit of a kick. You're gonna get a little bit of an ethanol hit on the tail end of your nosing experience on Buffalo Trace, because I don't know why, but I think that this one right here is not as refined as it possibly could be. They're just putting out a product that they know is still good, that can still do a lot of things. You can drink it neat, you can drink it on the rocks, you can drink it in cocktails. You're not gonna break the bank when you start your experience with just their regular offering of Buffalo Trace. And you know, it's still a good experience. So let's get to the palate and let's see what it's got to offer. It starts off so pleasantly. You get a little bit of a warming effect. You know, once it hits your tongue, you know you've got a little bit of an alcohol kick going on there. But that dissipates so fast, and you get this nice rounded sweetness. It's got a little bit of caramel, a little touch of vanilla. You know, you're going to get that off of this, but it rounds out of those sweetnesses, and I get a fruit kick. I get a little bit of an apple, some apple skins, some tart apples, like Granny Smith apples in a way. I'm not getting a lot of cinnamon, so I'm not going to say that it's like an apple pie, but you get a little bready quality to it as well. You're getting those grains that come through on there, and it's really pleasant. It's a very nice sip, and for a $25, $30 bottle, this is one that I really try and recommend a lot of the times, if you can find it for that price point, to start your experience with drinking a neat bourbon that's not on the rocks or in a cocktail, because it is going to be a very enjoyable experience. your second sip, you're not going to get a lot of that proof. Your tongue is starting to get acclimated to what it just experienced on that first sip, and you're going to get a little bit more out of that sip, right? You're going to get a little bit of that oaky quality. Your tongue is going to start salivating on its sides, and you're going to get a little bit more sweetness, but you're going to find a lot more of what you found on the end of your first sip on your second sip. Your fruity qualities are going to come through a little bit more, and you're going to enjoy it a little bit more off of that second sip than that first sip, because the beginning of your first sip was a little bit tainted by that alcohol kick. So we're going to go on one more sip. And I always think that my third sip of Buffalo Trace is a happy marriage of my first sip and my second sip, with minus the alcohol kick in the beginning, right? That really nice hit of sweetness with the vanilla, and then it combats and has a nice, beautiful marriage with the oaky presence, and it's a very, very nice, enjoyable, cheap bottle of bourbon that you can definitely sip and enjoy any way you want to. Let's move on to Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare is a little bit different, right? This has an absolute age statement of 10 years old on it. And the fun thing with Eagle Rare is, even though that this is a single barrel store pick itself, a lot of Eagle Rare barrels, I'm going to say probably 95% of them, are single barrel products themselves as well, even if they don't have that sticker on it. But Eagle Rare, once they finish a barrel, if that bottle is not filled, they then continue filling that bottle with another barrel. So because of that, they can't consider Eagle Rare specifically a single barrel, because, at least one bottle out of that filling process has juice from 2 different barrels. But, at least when you get store picks, you know that these are single barrel products, and you don't have to worry about one bottle out of the God knows how many they get being blended. So here we go. A lot of these times, these are going to be a little bit different from each and every one, but you're still going to get mostly the same notes out of each and every one of them, with just a couple of subtle nuances. Sometimes you might get a bad barrel here and there, but a lot of the times you're just not going to get that. So let's get in the nose of this and see what a couple extra years at the same proof point does to Eagle Rare than Buffalo Trace. You're definitely off of the nose getting a little bit more of a tannicness, a little bit more of an oaky presence. It's not quite bold, but you're definitely going to pick that up a little bit more off of the Eagle Rare. I'm getting a little bit more of a richer vanilla compared to this. As this was a sweet vanilla, this is a little bit more dark, a little more dense on that vanilla note. And with that darker, deeper vanilla, it kind of covers up the sweeter cherry notes that are in there. I'm not getting a lot of those apple notes, but I do pick up a little bit of a citrus note off of Eagle Rare that I did not get off of Buffalo Trace. I'm getting a little bit like orange peels off of it, which is really interesting, and it's one of those things that I really, really like and that I always find in Eagle Rare. And once those notes kind of dissipate a little bit, I always find a touch, whether it's up front in your face or just a little tiny smidge of grape soda. And man, oh man, when I find that in the nose, I tend to always find it in the palate. So I'm excited to get in this one. So cheers to you guys. So with your first sip of Eagle Rare, you're definitely getting a little bit more of an oaky presence, right? You're going to dry out the sides of your tongue a little bit quicker than Buffalo Trace. It's a little bit more dark, a little bit more dense, a little bit more rich. Mouthfeel tends to be a little bit creamier, a little bit more viscous. The viscosity of this tends to be a little bit thicker, even though it is the exact same proof. I find that the finish of Eagle Rare lasts a little bit longer than Buffalo Trace, and for that, the experience for me is just a little bit better. It's a very, very sweet oak experience. It's not bitter at any bit with this drink right here. I find a little bit of those orange oils that come through when you express oils off of an orange peel. I get those orange notes in my face. It's really, really a very nice experience. I get a little bit of that grape soda in here. It's got a little bit of a cola effect, a little bit of those dark, almost like a Cabernet in a way, how it dries out the sides of your cheeks. Very, very dry, makes you want to go back in for another sip. This is one of those bourbons that, I tend, if I find it for under 50 bucks, I am most likely going to pick it up because I love Eagle Rare so much. And for me, it's one of those bottles that I'm not hesitant to make into a cocktail, because I know that this right here will amplify and make a cocktail better than this. The Buffalo Trace is going to make a cocktail good. It's going to make a good cocktail, but if you want an absolute experience with a cocktail, Eagle Rare for me is going to be the one that I go to as a 90 proofer that is absolutely fantastic. And even on the rocks or neat, you will 100% enjoy your experience with Eagle Rare no matter what. The man, the myth, the legend, Blantons Single Barrel Bourbon from Buffalo Trace, coming in at 93 proof, is the pinnacle, the tater juice that everybody and their mother tries to get their hands on. This one right here, like all Blantons, are aged in Warehouse H, which only houses Blantons Single Barrel Bourbon, which is a pretty cool story in itself. All Blanton's bottles are going to have a Horsey on top with a letter. This is a Horsey S off of this one, and all of them are going to have their dump date. This one is 6/22/22. It's going to have the barrel number, which is, this one is 261, and the Rick number, which is where it was stored in Warehouse H. This one is Rick number 28. All regular Blantons, this one is a regular Blantons, is bottled at 93 proof. It's got a couple more proof points than regular Buffalo Trace and the Eagle Rare, but these are said to be aged around 6 to 8 years. So it's a little bit younger than Eagle Rare, a little bit older than Buffalo Trace, and a little bit higher proof than those two. Does that change anything from these two? Does this right here make it any bit better? Does it make it worth those extra dollars that you have to shell out for Blantons? We're going to find out. Let's get into the nose and see what this one has to offer. I'm not getting the oakiness that I got off of the Eagle Rare. I'm getting a kind of about the same amount of oaky effect that I got off of the Buffalo Trace. I'm not getting a lot of ethanol kick on the nose. You know, Buffalo Trace had a little bit of an ethanol kick. This does not have that ethanol kick. The deep, rich vanilla is not as rich as it was in the Eagle Rare, but it does have a nice, strong honey note that comes through that I really do enjoy. You know, if Blanton's didn't have the eye-popping, eye appeal that it has, I don't think that a lot of people would tend to go towards it. Like, if this was just a regular bottle of bourbon that said Blanton Single Barrel on it, I don't think that it would sell out like it really does. It's a good bottle in its own right, but, you know, people go absolutely haywire over this, and, you know, there's reasons for that. But nonetheless, the nose is good, but is it $200 good? No. Let's get into the palate. I'm definitely getting a little bit more proof, and with 3 proof points, I tend to not think that I'm going to get a lot more of a proof kick compared to 90 to 93, but this definitely has a little bit more of an oomph in your face kind of effect. Nonetheless, after that kick to the face with the proof, it is just absolutely overwhelmingly sweet. It is very, very enjoyable. It is a very, very nice sip. This is one that you could probably really enjoy in the summer and early fall time. Sitting by the fire, sitting by the lake, you know, it's something that, this is definitely one that you could definitely enjoy doing that. This is, like I said, Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 2. This is going to be a little bit higher rye mash bill, around 12 to 14%. People speculate. We have absolutely no idea though. But nonetheless, I definitely get a little bit more of a rye spice, a little bit more of a cinnamon kick. I'm getting a nice sweet cinnamon. It's almost like an apple pie filling in a way. I'm getting a little bit of that apple effect that I was getting off of Buffalo Trace, but a little bit darker, a little bit deeper, a little bit denser. It's good. It's really, really good. But is it better than Eagle Rare? I'm going to have to say no. And, you know, some people might not see any of these bottles, and I am so sorry for you. But some people see Eagle Rare a lot of the times, and they don't see Blantons, or vice versa. Some people see Blantons all the time and don't see Eagle Rare. I'm not here to tell you what to buy. I'm just trying to tell you that from Buffalo Trace to Blantons, there's really not much of a difference. from a $26 bottle to a $65 and secondary offerings up to $200. I just don't think that there's a big enough difference to justify spending that extra money on the Blantons, but it's still good. You can taste the differences. You know that there are differences, but it's not a big night and day for me to justify saying that this is 100% the best offering of the three baseline Buffalo Trace products, and that this one right here deserves the only spot on your bar. I think if you can get all three, I definitely recommend getting all three and doing this yourself to see which one you prefer. You know, me, I prefer the Eagle Rare out of the three. You might prefer Buffalo Trace out of the three, and that's totally okay. That's what's fun about this bourbon world. Everybody has their own palate, everybody has their own preferences, and that's freaking all right. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope it was informative, and if it was, make sure you drop that like, leave that comment down below, and smash that subscribe button. But until next time, this has been Nathan with the Everyday Drinker. Cheers.